guys, and welcome back to Fringe Friday. I am Carmen, and yes, if you are curious, I am very sad that this is one of the last times I will be able to say welcome to Fringe Friday. Honestly, I can't talk about it. I'm getting emotional. Nope. This is season 5, episode 11. Last time on Fringe, we discovered the truth that I'm sure all of you were so excited to wait for my tiny little brain to finally discover, and that is that September is in fact Donald. Or Donald is in fact September. It works both ways, but the mystery was who is Donald, right? And now we know he is September. He, I assume, was in disguise wearing a wig, and also very curious because at one point the observers dragged Donald away from the cave, right? Surely they would have been able to tell that he was also an observer, right? I think I talked about this in the last episode. So nervous, curious as to what happened to September. Like, are we going to be able to find him? Also, you guys pointed out, because I did not notice, I don't think, that in the last episode when the boy, Michael, and Walter, connected, that he actually gave Walter the memories of our Walter. So now Walter will remember a world in which he saved his son, which makes me so happy. I don't think I noticed that. I don't remember noticing that, but that is very happy. Something that's not happy is Nina Sharp is now gone. We have unfortunately lost her, and again, I cannot really talk about it. You made it. Without being sad, so I'm not really going to talk about it, just acknowledging that happened. Where else are we? They figured out how to communicate with Michael, so that is helpful. And now, hopefully, we're gonna figure out how September became Donald, how the boy is gonna help. The plan is gonna start coming together. We're gonna defeat the observers and Wenmark, and we're gonna live happily ever after. Can't wait to see it. Let's get into the episode.
What are you doing up?
I could ask you the same thing.
He's working.
You need your rest, son.
There's work to be done.
I believe I have an idea about how we can find our friend September.
Oh, yeah?
The memory the boy showed me is in my subconscious. So, it involves the tank.
And LSD, right?
Hey, Walter, how are you?
Naked.
Walter, why did you remove your trunks?
They were too restrictive. My body needs to be as free and open as my mind so I can find September.
Yeah.
Are you feeling sufficiently free and open now?
I am. Let's get started.
I love Walter so much.
It's 140 over 90. No, 152 over 100.
That's pretty high.
It's still rising.
Spring rates are fluctuating.
Walter, your vitals are spiking.
You okay?
Are we going? Are we here?
I see the top of the Empire State Building.
Okay.
The Empire State Building's the east side of Manhattan.
To my right. Can't quite make
The
bridge.
Brooklyn Bridge, right?
I'm under a bridge.
I think it's the Williamsburg Bridge.
Oh, Williamsburg.
Based on the angle of the view that Walter described, I would say that the building is in Brooklyn, somewhere near the southeast base of where the bridge used to be.
So if September's still alive and he's still living in the same place, that's where we find him.
He's still alive.
How do you know?
Yeah.
I'm optimistic.
You are?
Why not? As to whether September is still living in the same place, we shall see. We must hurry.
He's not being as worrying.
When the boy touched me, he showed me more than just images. It was freeing, Peter. All at once, I understood that everything I'd ever known, or thought I knew as a great man, could fit into a thimble. And that's not all he gave me. I remember things. Things I haven't experienced. I think from the other timeline, before you were erased, before the timeline was reset. I remember when you came to me in Sinclair's. Your first words. I thought you'd be fatter. And I remember the night I was up late making a peanut butter sandwich. You slipped and called me Dad.
Yes.
The feeling of joy that gave me. And the terror before you stepped into the machine. I told you I've never been good at letting you go, and you said,
This time you're gonna have to.
Peter gives him purpose. Peter's love.
What is this boy?
We don't
How
know.
could he do this for you?
I don't know.
Enable you to see a life you didn't live?
I'm not sure, but I feel it.
Do you remember the plan?
No, I'm sure not.
No idea.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would he give you back all of those memories but not give you the plan?
I don't know.
Because you're more
Even before I met
important than
him,
anything.
I didn't think it was possible to love you more. But now, knowing what we've been through, and everything we've had, I do.
Damn it. I love them so much. Like, I fucking love Peter and Walter so fucking much. I'm so happy Walter gets that.
You never liked public displays of affection. Or going number 2 in a public restroom. I remember that too.
That one's a bit more random.
But whoever hid this anomaly did so for a reason. It should not exist. But someone wanted it to exist. Someone ensured its survival because they thought it was important.
Okay. I thought we would recognize the commander, but I don't think I do. Is it gonna be September? Or is it gonna be somebody else?
Walter Bishop.
It's him! Does he know he's September, or does he think he's Donald? Or is he Donald?
Trapped in Amber. 21 years. You were frozen in time. I never thought I'd see you again.
How does he have hair? Who, like, what version of September is this? Okay, how does he know the boy? I need answers.
Before the invasion, I was apprehended for my continued interference in the timeline
Yeah.
and my interaction with all of you. As punishment, they removed my device.
Oh, so that's how he has the hair and the...
I'm no longer able to move through time or do the things that I was able to do. They experimented on me.
And why the name Donald?
Yeah.
You really don't remember, do you?
Did he give it to him?
And the first movie we watched together was Singing in the Rain.
Aww.
And I chose the name Donald O'Connor.
Yes. It was an excellent movie. I used to sing Make 'Em Laugh wonderfully in the key of A minor.
I remember.
What?
He was born hundreds of years from now.
Yeah.
Like all of our kind, he was created in a lab. using the genetic material of a designated donor. It was a process that began generations earlier with a discovery on February 20th, 2167 by a scientist in Oslo, Norway, who was trying to find ways to increase human intelligence. He realized that if he could rewire the portion of the human brain that induces jealousy, he could increase cognitive function, sacrificing emotion for intelligence. This discovery was the catalyst for the creation of the beings that you called observers.
Okay.
And his work carried on. More and more emotions were seen as roadblocks to higher intelligence. Things like anger, greed, aggression. They were abandoned in the pursuit of intellect.
Then why
Eventually,
are
humanity
observers
became
so cruel?
intelligent and efficient. They lost perspective of the value of these emotions, not only the negative ones, but the positive as well. And soon empathy, compassion, and love became messy distractions. And they too were machined out. And without romantic love, they developed new reproductive technologies.
I require data on an anomaly.
Which progeny is it?
Anomaly XB6783746.
I don't understand. Is like how cruelty comes into it, and like hatred, evil.
The scientists in charge of reproduction realized that his brain had developed differently from the other offspring.
Its maturation was halted.
To them, he was an anomaly, a defect.
Okay.
Whose genetic material was used to create this progeny?
I want to know too.
I had observed in your time how fathers cared for their sons and protected them.
Is he September's son?
It stirred something in me that I could not ignore.
He's September's son, right?
I took the boy away and hid him in the past, where he would be safe.
He's your son?
Yes, yeah, right? He has to be. Yes. That makes sense. He loves him.
I am experiencing something that I do not understand.
Emotion.
The idea of ending their existence consumes me.
Yep. Hatred.
I always knew the boy was important, but when I realized why, what he was supposed to do, my device had been removed. I'd lost the ability to move through time.
It all comes
So it came to you.
together.
That was the plan. We were going to send the boy forward into time.
That boy in there is how we're gonna see Etta again.
I think he can't hope right now.
You don't believe me?
I want to believe that more than anything. We've still got a long way to go.
I think he can't really like allow for that possibility right now if he's able to be able to do what he needs to do to get there, right? Like he's gonna become too clouded by wanting her back.
There is no back there.
Is he gonna blow it up? September? Bud? Please? It turned red. Fucking bitches. Why did they have to notice right as it was gonna do that, okay? Like, if only they hadn't, we would have been free of them.
He gave me an awareness of another timeline. When you saved Peter and I from Raiden Lake.
Yeah.
When you pulled us from the lake, you said the boy is important.
I thought about
Must
that too.
live.
I thought you were
You
talking about
referring
Peter.
to my son.
We-
You're referring to yours.
We always thought it was about Peter.
Yes.
But also Peter is
Show you
important.
anything else?
Yes. There's one thing I haven't told the others.
What?
He showed me that for the plan to work, I would have to sacrifice myself.
No. No, no, no. You guys, no.
Is that right?
Yes.
I don't want to lose Walter.
Are you frightened?
No, I'm sad.
It was your decision to sacrifice yourself for the plan. Do you remember that?
No, he doesn't.
You said you had caused so much unintended damage. You felt this was your chance to make amends. You would not have it any other way.
I would have it another way.
Do you remember getting a white tulip?
I can't. Yes.
Yes, I do. It was a sign from God.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
I will see you again. Promise.
You better. Don't attack the couch, please.
We're good. Let's go.
I feel like they should have disguises because, like, you could just tell who they are. You know, if I know who I'm looking for, which maybe they don't. I don't know.
Go into the first car. On your right. Now. We're on board. We'll make our way to you.
They're coming to my car. I think they're gonna search it.
Can the boy do anything?
Michael! Michael! Michael!
Why did he do that? Why?
Michael.
He's gone. He just walked off the train. What?
Why did he do that? Sam.
Hello.
He's trying to attack the mic. Sammy, come here. Of course it ends there. So this episode was very emotional for me. It's emotional anyway because we're getting to the end of the show. I love these characters and their bonds and their relationships and just them. And so the idea of losing them in a few episodes anyway, as in not having new episodes, but then also the idea of like losing Walter it's hard, right? So I loved this episode, even though it was incredibly stressful. It was really cool to see who the boy was and to figure out how September became Donald and to just sort of discover more of the plan, or actually what the plan is, which it's kind of indicating to know that essentially I was right about like what the plan was, that somehow they were going to travel through time and stop the observers from ever, well, I was right and wrong, right? Because I thought they were going to travel through time to stop the observers from ever coming back in time, I think. You guys let me know if you remember what my theory was. I think that's what it was. But the actual plan is to show them that emotion is another form of intelligence and that it's actually beneficial in the evolution of humanity. And so we don't have to get rid of emotion. Although you would think, here's the thing, you would think that they could just send back like the information on how they're destroying the planet and how the human race is dying out and Earth is going to die much sooner than it would have anyway because of what they're doing, and then maybe they would realize that getting rid of emotion isn't a good idea. But I guess what they're saying is the motivation of the scientists to increase human intelligence and do away with things that they deemed not necessary for future evolutions of humanity, like emotions and feelings and anger and all that stuff. You would think that they would know that it's not beneficial for humanity in the long run, and therefore not emotion or intellectually beneficial as well to completely get rid of emotion, right? Also, I still fail to understand, and maybe it's just my lack of understanding in general, like what constitutes a feeling and an emotion, or what constitutes like logical intelligence, right? But I feel like the observers are cruel, right? Like what they're doing isn't simply for intelligence. They also, it seems to me at least, that a part of them revels in cruelty. And I feel like cruelty isn't born of intelligence, but emotion. Like hate. Like these things aren't born of intellect, right? They're born of ignorance and emotion. So maybe that's just, again, my lack of understanding. Maybe I'm interpreting the motivations behind the observers incorrectly, but when Mark in this episode admits that he's feeling things, right? Like his desire to get the fugitives doesn't stem from an intellectual desire to stop. Well, desire is an emotion anyway, right? But his need to get rid of them isn't intellectual at all. It's emotional. He feels angry that he hasn't succeeded in eradicating them, and so he, I don't know, he has a personal emotional investment in it, which is interesting because September was also created. Now, he is a younger generation than Windmark and them, right? He was one of the original 12-man team sent back to observe. So, but it's interesting how even in their quest to eradicate emotion, the human desire or whatever, something about the human psyche reaches, like, it longs for emotion, right? It's still seeping through. Hundreds of years, right? Because he went to, where is Windmark from? Around 2600, I assume. That's when he went to talk to the commander. So I assume he's from around that era. So even then, 600 years after, well, no, when? It would have been 500, right? Because they did it in 2167. So, like, 500 years after they first started eradicating emotion from the human experience, it's still trying to claw its way back. So doesn't that prove that emotion is important in general? Right? Also, personally, I don't understand, and you guys are gonna be like, fucking duh, but I don't understand how emotion gets like a bad reputation versus intelligence, right? Now, I am not the smartest person in the room. Well, in this room, hopefully, because there's literally only cats in here. But in most rooms, I would never claim to be the smartest person. When it's me and Calvin here, he's the smartest person in the room, right? Like, he's very intelligent anyway. But I'm also not dumb. Yeah, I know that some people might think that because I very much lead with emotion, but I intellectually understand things, right? I'm not scientific, I'm not whatever, but my IQ is not is not super low, right? So I think, though, personally, again, being a way less smart person than super smart people, I think emotion is so important to the human experience. Our ability to give a shit about other people, our ability to empathize, to sympathize, to care about each other and like animals and like the environment and the world and working conditions and homeless, like just everybody. Like our ability to care, to feel for other people is so important, I think, to being human, that it really boggles my mind that anybody could exist regardless of their level of intelligence and, you know, think that in order to become more intelligent, it's worth sacrificing our ability to care. Like, it just, that is such a crazy concept to me. Like, I do not understand the thought process behind that. And I understand that there is time for emotion and there is time for logic. And I understand all of that, right? Like, I know that I get very emotional in the moment. And then later, I try to, you know, take a little bit of the emotion out of it and look at it in a logical way. Like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And how can I look at it? But I think that to completely take emotion out of it is ridiculous, because then we don't give a shit about the planet. We don't give a shit about each other. We don't give a shit about animals. We don't care about the way that what we do affects each other in a society. That is so important, to care about the way that what you do affects other people. Like, it is a recipe for anarchy. It's a recipe for the worst version of humanity to exist, right? And I think that that is the argument that Fringe is making, right? Right here. Like, the observers are the worst version of humanity. Yeah. They are like all of the bad things that you could think about being human. That's what the observers are. And I think that Fringe is really saying, which I love for a show that is so focused on science and intellect, that all of that, being being intelligent without having the emotion behind it is what creates evil, right? Because even in Walter's story, we saw he was so scared of who he was becoming. He was so scared of who he was becoming. And then the second that he was reminded of another timeline where he loved Peter even more and he saved him and just love abounded, he immediately, that was no longer a worry or a threat, because he knew love, right? In a way that this timeline didn't give him. So I think that I have always loved Fringe and the message of it. And I think that the observers and this end storyline, like, humanity has to win. Walter, Peter, Olivia, September / Donald, Michael, like, they have, well, I'll talk about Michael in a second, but they have to win because it matters that they do, right? And I also want to talk about Walter and Peter's relationship throughout this show has been the cornerstone of everything, right? Walter loving Peter, Peter loving Walter. That is the heart, the soul, the bread and butter of Fringe. This show could not exist without that relationship. It is so, so central. And I love it so, so much. But also, it is literally what is going to save the world. So, one, I love that the boy is important, he must live, is like given new meaning through this episode. However, I think that Walter was like, you meant, Michael, your son, not my son. I would argue that both of them had to live in order for this to happen. And I think we know that through what happened in the original timeline of the show, because without Peter, Walter can't be Walter. And without observing Peter and Walter's bond, September would not have understood love in the way that he does, of a father and a son, and how important that relationship is. He wouldn't have felt the need to go and find Michael, the anomaly, and to give a shit about what happens to him and stop him from being destroyed, which eventually ends up being the key to saving the world, right? So whatever way you slice it, Peter is still so important. I mean, for multiple reasons. But I love that they added so many layers onto that, but still at the heart, like the very first sprout of the very first layer is Walter and Peter and their love for each other. Like, I fucking love it. I love it so much. I love them bringing back things from the previous seasons. The red and green flashes, you guys remember? Which is a thing as well, right? Like we talked about way back when they did that in the first season. Like, that is a subliminal sort of mind thing. I want to say there was an episode of X-Files about that as well, which I probably already said during the first run of it, but I can't remember. But it was cool to see that brought back. The Boy is Important brought back. The white fucking tulip brought back to completely destroy me emotionally, sure. But I love that being brought back. I am not here for Walter sacrificing himself. I understand it might happen. Okay, I understand that if he does, he's doing it because he loves them and he wants what's best, right? Like, I get it. I get it. I will not be emotionally okay if that happens. I'm just letting you guys know. Emotion will win in that situation, right? Like, I will cry and I will not stop crying. I might have to, if that ends up happening in the finale, I might have to like take a minute before a post-episode discussion because I will not be okay. Also, okay, so I want to make sure that I have the timeline of September and Donald correctly, right? So, give me a second. There's a cat pooping in the litter box, so give them a second as well. You did good, Dean. You buried it. Want to make sure I understand the Donald-September timeline. Okay, so September and Walter working together. Also, quick aside, love September and Walter as well. I had no idea when we first saw him in season 1 how central to this story he would be, how important to the story he would be, how fucking much I would love him. Like, it's crazy. especially because if you've ever seen The Good Wife, he also plays a character on that, the actor, and he is not nearly as likable. Anyway, so after everything happened where September showed Peter all of that stuff, I think it was the end of season 4, right? And he like showed him everything, and then he gave him the egg and stuff, and he left, and like all that stuff that happened, right? That was when he was deemed like an interferer and left as a human, right? I think that's what they're saying. So after like the bullet that saved the world and all of that stuff at the end of season 4, that's when he became human. Or I mean, he already is human, but like the device got taken out as punishment. Yeah. No. Yeah. But he had already gone and gotten Michael. September went back and got the boy, not for the plan at all, right? He just got Michael because he was his son, and he loved him, and he wanted him with him. You guys can let me know if I got this wrong, by the way. So he went and got him and hid him because he didn't want him to be destroyed, because he loves him like a son. And Walter and Peter's relationship helped him discover that. Now, I'm not exactly positive when he went and got him and hid him, but it was before he went, I don't know if it was before he went to the quarry. It was before he was apprehended and punished, because when he went to the quarry, he had hair. So that means that he had already been apprehended, punished, the device taken out. So I think the plan developed after that. And then he went to the quarry. He was questioned. They let him go because he was like a known offender. Like, he's just like a weird one of us, but harmless. They didn't know he was working with Walter. So at some point in 2015, right, Walter and September decided that the plan was to show them how important emotion is in human intellect and development. So they would send the boy back. But since September had already been punished and was no longer able to travel through time, he couldn't just take Michael and go. So they had to devise a plan, create a device that would allow them to do that. I think that's what I got from it. So, sorry, I know that was a lot of rambling and whatever, but I think I know what happened and like the rough timeline of it now, which seems important to me to try to figure out so I can stick it in my brain. All right, and the last couple things I want to talk about is Etta, and then the boy's decision at the end, which I think could be related, right? Because one, it worries me that they want to send the boy forward in time to be experimented on. Like, what if the boy doesn't want that? Is there any way that he can sort of communicate that maybe he doesn't want that? I don't know. Also, I want Etta back. I want Olivia and Peter to get Etta back. I worry that the boy read Olivia's feelings about Etta and like has less trust in her now because he doesn't know that she'll protect him over getting her daughter back. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I feel like it could. Now, I think that if push came to shove, Olivia would hopefully choose the boy standing in front of her, you know? But I don't know. Grief is a messy thing. Grief is a horrible thing. And I don't think that there's any wrong or right way to process it. yeah. I don't know. But I hope that we do get Etta back, and I hope that we don't have to, like, I don't know. I'm just curious how the boy feels about being sent as, like, a test subject, kind of, right? And the last thing is, why did he just step off of the fucking train? Like, unless he was trying to sacrifice himself to save Olivia and them, although he's so central to their plan, like, I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking, because we never know what he's thinking, right? Like, he's such an enigma. He's such a mystery. Like, we just don't know. And so, yeah. I feel like he did it to help them somehow. Like, I ultimately don't think that it's because he's worried about Olivia's feelings for Etta. Like, I think that could be some sort of factor. I think it's worth thinking about. But ultimately, I think that he did it to protect them and their plan. And I don't know how it protects them and their plan. But I feel, I don't think that he's, like, gonna betray you real quick, you know? So I don't know. I'm not sure what his ultimate end goal is, but I think it's good. I think it's good. I don't know. Yeah, I think that that's all that I really have to say about this episode. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want, you can like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. You can also watch the next episode right now over on Patreon if you're watching this on YouTube, as well as my entire full-length reaction to this episode and every single episode thus far of Fringe. That is over on Patreon as well. Yeah. I hope to see you guys next week for the penultimate episode of the entire series. Until then. Bye, guys.